Balcones' first ever year-round bourbon was an inspiration. It all had to work together. A blend of carefully selected ingredients, Texas-sized pot stills, and creative people determined to find the absolute best way to usher a new whiskey along. When you discover how it pairs with a meaningful moment, suddenly the feeling of drinking great whiskey becomes a whole lot more.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Whiskey Neat, spirited conversations with interesting people. I am your host, Kristopher Hart. Now this week, I catch up with some friends of mine. If you remember, last week we had a rerun we had to play with Senior Matthew McConaughey. But actually, the very first time I sat down with Matthew, the next following week, I sat down with the Bourbon Junkies. So Dan and Sean joined me again this week to catch up on what's going on in their life, their long-term plans for their channel. They're doing incredible things. So, So without further ado, let's jump right into our ad reads here. Whiskey Neat is brought to you in part by Legent Bourbon, a first-of-its-kind super premium bourbon that melds Kentucky distilling tradition with Japanese blending excellence. Legent is perfectly balanced yet complex and a layered whiskey with I go through this every week, guys. You know my feelings on it. It's good. It's in a delicious bottle. And you can order a bottle in your area right now via drizzly.com. As always, we love to tell you to please drink safe, drink smart, and enjoy. Last but not least, of course, on top of Balcones, our official sponsor of the show, Amrut has supported the show for a while now. And I love Amrut so much. It's been a great partnership. And this year, Amrut became the world's fourth trending world single malt brand, just after Nika, Suntory, and Cavalon. Amrut would like to thank all of the listeners across the world for being a part of that growth, but especially the listeners for our channel. I'm a huge fan. You can still get our Amrut bottle. It's not the one. It's not the Whiskey Pete one, but it's a great one. And you can still find Amrut all over Texas. It's a very well-loved brand. So shout out to Amrut for being an ongoing sponsor now for almost 2 years. Without further ado, please welcome the Bourbon Junkies, Sean and Dan. Cheers. I'm excited to talk to you guys. It's been such a blur of about 2 months, so I haven't actually. I still am a faithful subscriber to you guys, and was watching quite a bit, but I have not actually seen an episode or caught up. I just have been seeing. I see Instagram posts to see you guys are looking at building a studio. So it's. I've been lacking in all my Facebook activities. So yeah. I figured we could catch up.
I think one of the things that happens when you get involved in either making content or doing something in the industry or whatever, I think the first thing that happens is you stop consuming as much content from that industry. Yeah. Because you're already doing it all day or all night or whenever you're choosing to do it. So it's harder to consume the content when you could be spending that time trying to do something that you're working on or a project or whatever. So
yeah, many years ago, I was a wedding photographer. And you would run as you got hired to do weddings throughout the city. You'd run into the same DJ, like at different weddings. You'd be like, "What's up, man?" Right. And I remember this one guy. He refused to listen to music in his truck. Anywhere he would go for a drive, it would just be in silence because he was so fucking tired of hearing the top 40.
Bro, listen to a podcast or something. I would go crazy just listening to nothing.
Yeah, but this guy in his quiet time, he's just hearing like all the time.
Well, and this was 15 years ago too. So this is before podcasts were all the rage. So, but I get it. I get that you don't want to. Once you get into something, you either cut out the things that have complete fluff. Like I used to love to play Call of Duty and I don't have time for it anymore. Mm-hmm. Or then other stuff like, you just don't consume. I don't consume much whiskey podcasts. It's you guys. Or if there's an exceptionally well done video on a subject, I'll watch that, but that's it.
Sure. Yeah, man. I used to be in like every live stream ever in chat. And hang out with like everybody all the time as much as I could. Mm-hmm. And I still like join live stream chats from time to time, maybe once a week, twice a week, something like that. But it used to be like everybody's chat. You know what I mean? And now
There's a lot of people.
Now it's like, dude, I should be editing, or I should be working on this project, or I should answer some emails because they've been there for 2 days, or you know what I mean? Like there's just shit to do that isn't, unfortunately, it's just everything's time consuming. Everything's time based, and you can't get more of it. So it's just a shit show is what it feels like. But
so catch me up. What's going on in y'all's world? What are the plans for the Bourbon Junkies?
Drink more whiskey, probably.
I probably go like crazy very soon. That's slated to happen within the weeks, I assume, for Dan. Other than that, just keep making videos, and are we allowed to talk about
we can talk about whatever, I guess.
Can we talk about that?
What?
The Penelope?
Oh yeah, we can talk about that.
We can talk
for
about
sure.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can talk about all the blends. So one of the things, and it's funny because you and I have had this conversation off of video and podcasting and whatever, but one of the things that we ran into that you also experienced with your situation was single barrels aren't high enough yields for people who are interested, right? So supply is not anywhere near meeting the amount of demand.
They're not topping off that barrel. You're getting, 150-ish.
Yeah. And so realistically, we started doing barrel picks for patrons and stuff. Realistically, at the end of last year, we did one last year. So and then we've done 7 or 11 or something around that range this year. And one of the things that we're finding now is they're hitting like a certain tier, and then they're gone, and then everybody else doesn't get to see them, and then people are frustrated, and people are, upset, for a lack of a better word, fucking butt hurt. You know what I mean? Like it's unfortunate because people.
You didn't make it 10 minutes. You swore before I did. I want that to be known. Put it on the record.
That's true. Usually Sean's the one. So
I was trying.
But everybody gets upset and whatever. And like we have talked about so many times, a single barrel is a single barrel, and it's a single barrel because it is what the words imply. And like us, we can't produce more whiskey. If I could turn water into whiskey and it be the same whiskey in that barrel, I'd be so rich, it'd be incredible, right?
I want everyone to know that you have raised your voice like 5 decibels, like through.
I'm already frustrated.
You're ramping up. It's like
if I could,
emails,
if I could be the Jesus of whiskey, I just do it, right? Yeah. So unfortunately, we can't. So the single barrels, even though doing more of them, there's only so many distilleries to work with, right? And there are a lot of options, but they still just aren't producing the yields that we need or want or whatever. So one of the things that I talked to Mike from Penelope for a little while, and he's like, let me send you some stuff, and then you guys can try it on the channel. Mm-hmm. You guys don't have to make videos. You don't have to make any content with it. Just try it and let me know what you think. Which is perfect because like when a distillery approaches you, it's a little bit different than somebody like a buddy saying, hey man, I'd like to send you guys a bottle to try, right?
Yeah.
Because when that guy sends a bottle and you don't like it, who gives a shit? He didn't make it. But when the distillery sends you a bottle and they're like, try it, man, make 17 videos and tell us how much you love it and how great we are.
The ramifications of not liking it are much higher.
It just feels feels worse.
So yeah, I talked to Fred, and Fred Minnick said that I believe it's either Beam or I think it's Beam. Beam gets their feelings hurt tremendously.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they won't work with Fred. There's a big distillery that won't work. I mean, I think you're supposed to not say the name first, and then I went ahead and said the name first.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a big distillery, I won't say which, that won't work with Fred Minnick because he's hurt their feelings in the past. It's either them or Wild Turkey. But yeah, I mean, there is definitely more there. We had Deerhammer send us some samples, and I was honest on air. And they unfollowed me on Instagram.
Right.
The whole thing, yeah. Well, but go ahead, sorry.
And one of the things is like often when the emails come into the inbox, and usually Sean or I'll see them, and then I'll respond and say, hey, if you are willing to send us like a sample or something first, we can try it. Like, let's approach it that way, because if what you want from us is content, we'd really like to enjoy the product, not hurt you publicly, and then you think we're dicks, and then you don't want to work with us ever again, even if you someday do put out a product we do like, right? So, and some distilleries haven't been on board with that at all and don't like that idea. And then some have been, I asked one place for a sample, and then they just sent a whole bottle, and then I'm like, we don't love it. And they're like, all right, cool, have a good one. Like that was it.
No hard feelings. It was like, that's what we want. We want to let you guys know that we're transparent on the fact that we're going to put out content. If you guys want it, it could be good, it could be bad. So if you just want to send us a sample, it'll save a lot of heartbreak.
But so now what we're doing is the plan is to work with Penelope. Penelope sent some whiskey over, and we had the normal red label, it's pretty good, and then we had a toasted barrel that was pretty good. Perfect. And then there was a blend that he sent that was a black label blend, and it's absolutely amazing. I love it. Like, I'm madly in love with it. And I messaged him and I'm like, dude, is this something that we can do? Like, is this something we can work with you guys on? And he's like, we can do anything. Like, let's figure it out. So we got on a call, and he's been super helpful. And so now we're going to do a blending project with them for a higher yield product that we can release that can be ours. It's a Penelope, obviously going to have a Penelope label on it.
Yep.
But instead of doing like these single barrel picks, which we're still doing, we're not stopping doing those or whatever. But now we can offer something that might be like 300, 400, whatever bottles that we are kind of aiming towards, and hit more people and get it to more people, make it more available.
Plus, it's more sustainable.
Which is what people want. So
yeah.
And it's fun, man. How much fun is like picking single barrels is fun. Don't get me wrong. I think everybody has a good time.
Yeah.
But like, how much fun is like sitting down and trying to make something that's different than everything else? You know what I mean? So,
well, yeah, I mean, from the consumer side, we've all been kind of brought up into thinking single barrels where it's at for an experience. Mm-hmm. You want to find the honey barrel, you want to find the snowflake, and I guess that term takes on different tones nowadays, but but as someone in your position or in my position, there is something extremely exciting, a bit of unknown territory in the idea of like, we're going to blend something. It's going to have distribution in multiple states.
Sure.
Like, this is daunting, but far more exciting than just picking up, 10 single barrels that are going to yield 150 bottles and everyone's pissed off they didn't get one. And I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited for you.
Yeah, it's a much bigger endeavor than just going to a distillery saying, I want that barrel, bottle it, we're good.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to
the experience itself is a lot of fun.
Yeah. I don't want to undersell how much fun that is, because it is fun, especially because often you can take people you want to hang out with and you guys just get to chill, and it's like usually not stressful.
Yeah.
Finding different barrels that are cool is a blast, especially at some of the experiences. Mm-hmm. The experience we had at Starlight was wild. Like, it was so much fun because we went out there with Christian and he's like, what do you like? Tell me what you like. Try this. You don't like that. What don't you like? Try this. We tried 12 barrels before like 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
They're just thieving them right out of the barrels. They're like, all right, let me know what you think of that. And we're like, it's not really our profile we're looking for. He goes, all right, well, then we're going over to this part of the distillery or the rick house. And he's just started thieving stuff there. He's like, what do you think of this? We're like, that's really good. He goes, all right, we're in the right area.
And it was so much fun. But then you go to new places like New Riff and they go, pick 3 barrels that you want to try from these descriptions we came up with. Mm-hmm. You pick 3 and then hopefully you like one and pick the best one. Right. Yeah. So it can be a fun experience. Some places it are. I've heard nothing but great things about Wild Turkey's, Russell picks, stuff like that. But at the same time, having the whiskey in front of you, trying to make something completely different. It's not a single barrel. Unless somebody uses the exact same ratios you use from the same samples, they literally can't make the same product. Yeah. Like, there's something cool about that.
So in reality, when we mess it up, we've got some people that are around us that we can invite over and they'll fix it for us. So we got that going on. And
we get to figure out if I'm like drastically better at blending whiskey than Sean, or just like a little better.
We have proven time and time again, aren't.
I haven't tried yet.
Do you remember pouring out your infinity bottle? It was so bottled. Or so bad.
I haven't tried. Nah, I didn't take that seriously.
Okay.
So we'll see. But we're gonna do that. We're gonna do the project with Penelope.
Hold on, guys. I'm having a connection issue.
I'm just gonna I was looking at my internet and I'm like, nobody's really using the internet here except
Ricky's iPhone is just chugging through.
Watching Netflix or something. Watching Netflix.
Yeah, Sex Life, is that movie?
Uploading to OnlyFans, dude.
Yeah, you do.
We don't edit this. I don't know if you should say that stuff.
They can edit it.
No, the thing I try to tell people, especially if I know who's going to be on, like, I didn't get to have Santino on the podcast.
Right.
It was I am convinced up until this meeting that the guy did not like me, and it stems from. There's this thing that happens within the podcast realm where if you watch the Bourbon Junkies every week, I feel like I know you guys. Sure. I feel like we're close friends.
Yeah.
I feel like I understand your wife, the dog. I know the guys, right? But they don't know you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when I first had Shab on the very first time, there was this his fan base were making jokes about, one, either jokes, like actually just trying to be funny, or two, saying that I, stole his idea for his podcast, even though my show was first. And so I would play into the banter. I would kind of, take shots at Cheeto, whatever. But at one point I realized that it was just me and his fans, that he wasn't really engaging in it other than, yeah. So I reached out for weeks leading up to his visit to Houston. No response, like no response. So I know the Improv, and I was like, I'll just take him a bottle of the Prideful Goat, and we'll open it. He'll know that I'm relatively normal.
That's a move. Yeah. Hey, that's the move though, because that's a good bottle too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So it worked. We had an insanely good time. We hung out in the green room. We got to spend the whole weekend together, and it was great. I didn't get him on, and there was a point to this. What was the point?
Wait, did he think you were an asshole before that? Did you ever find out?
So I walked in and he goes, you son of a bitch. I was like, you know who I am? Like,
right.
Because that was 2 years ago when that first thing happened. And he saw, he doesn't follow me, but he saw the Father's Day video I posted.
Okay.
And he was like, you shot that thing with your father. I was like, that's not my father. It's an Eddie Russell lookalike. But so he's been aware of me, and I've wondered if I've just been like a joke in that circle.
Right.
But we literally spent all day yesterday tasting barrels. We've got the Prideful Goat Rye coming out, and we tasted a bunch of barrels. We hung out, we played darts, and I really did have a point to this. I wasn't just trying to talk about Santino.
Chris is like, let me name drop.
Yeah. And, what were we talking about before we got into it? God damn it.
What were we talking about?
I know why. So every time you guys are on, you're always nervous about cussing and stuff. And I've learned that whenever I have certain guests on, we just won't air that portion on the radio.
Sure.
But even so, feel free to just speak your normal self.
Right.
And in retrospect,
I can't say half the stuff he says off camera on our camera. You know what I mean? Or like on our show.
Yeah.
So
neither can you. I've edited
all Ricky puts. I say wild stuff as a joke, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And Ricky puts it all on TikTok, so it doesn't even matter.
There is things that you've said and then looked at me and said, "I can't make it."
That's fair.
Everybody
says that because the problem is we know each other, and in our circles we'd say the same thing because we know them.
Yes,
and we'd all laugh because we all know we're joking.
100%.
And nobody's actually a piece of shit.
Right.
Unfortunately, the internet, the internet doesn't know. Not everybody knows that we're not a piece of shit as much as like some of the stuff we would joke about.
Yeah. It's not very light it's casting.
Right.
I'm all for the extreme take that is obviously clearly a joke, or just being hyperbolic in the moment. That episode I did with you and Matt, I made the comparison. I forget what the comparison was, but to abortion. And the comments, the comment section of that video, there was a lot of really pissed off people. I was a fan before this. How could you compare this to murdering babies? I was like, hey man, I'm drinking. It's a joke. Like, relax.
Yeah, we're also talking to other friends, right? So when people sit down and like give each other shit or talk to their buddies, like sometimes things come up that we won't even ever remember we said to each other because it was a joke and nobody cares, right? Like, but it's hard for people listening, especially listening to one specific episode, and they hear that and they're like, "Oh wow, he literally hates children." And you're like, "Well, I have kids and I love them a lot." And they're like, "No, you don't. Yeah. You clearly don't." Like,
we could say
I have a lot of kids. I have 4 kids. I've made this joke before. Like, people always ask us why we waited 10 years between kids, and I just told them we couldn't keep paying for the abortions. But we had like 2 and then like 50 abortions and then 2 more because we couldn't afford them anymore.
Wait, but how old do you talk about how old your kids are?
Yeah. I'm an open book.
How old are your kids then if they're that far apart?
15 and 16.
Okay.
And one's driving.
Okay.
And then 4 and 5.
Oh, damn, that's wild.
So 10 years in between.
How do you feel? How do you like
babysitters
now that you live like it's not on paper for you anymore. It's like actual real practice. How do you feel about it now? The distance.
No, it didn't even occur to me as an issue at all. The difference in age. It might have been more different if it was just one more.
Sure.
Because then they're basically a single child.
I like that you went back to back on the second set.
Yeah, can't have one child alone. He's like, gotta have another.
Like, you guys had a baby, and then there's a 9-month span where she can't have another baby because she's currently having one baby, right? And after that 9 months is up, you went, run it back.
Yeah.
You know what?
So it was 15 months between the last two. So I guess that's what's the term, Irish twins, when they're really close.
Sure.
But they they grew up together. They love each other, and her sister also had 2 kids back to back. So the 4 of them are like best friends. Honestly, I feel great about it. About it. And you how many do you have? You have 1?
I have 2. And Holden and Luna. And Holden is 6 and Luna is 1.5. So they're like 5 years apart. And it was funny because everybody's like, that's so far apart. And it was like, hey, I don't care. And also, Holden like is so excited and is madly in love with his little sister. So it also is like beneficial in the fact that we're not taking care of him the same way we need to take care of a baby, right? So it relieves a little bit of that stress, which is really, really nice. And the fact that he like can be a big brother as like an older sibling is super cool. So that's why I ask, because so many people talk shit, and it's usually people who don't have kids or something. But like they're like, well, you have to have babies like this, and it's like, no, you actually don't. You actually do it however you feel like doing it. So, but yeah,
it's one of those things that I think no matter what it is, especially in marriage, I'm sure at some point, and I would think. And if not, then shout out to Ricky. But I'm sure at some point, trying to pitch to her the idea of a podcast being legitimate was like, you're going to start a podcast? Is that going to be like whenever you've got kids back to back?
Right.
Like I started a whiskey festival when we had back to back babies, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to leave you home with these 2 kids, and I have a very important meeting at this bar, and and she's been incredibly supportive over the past 6 years. And when we sold a piece of our business back in December, we were at dinner celebrating, and I looked at her and I was like, don't you ever fucking doubt me. like I told you, 6 years later, I told you.
Right.
Well, we're 3 years into it now. And my wife still like every now and then I'll be like, yeah, I'm at work. She's like, are you at the hut or are you at work? You need to specify that. I was like, I'm at work. Very important meeting right now. What are you doing? Drinking, working.
But also I don't need to specify that. Like it's a legitimate, like if you're bringing in, even if you're bringing in $1,000 a month, which is pretty, I would say is probably a safe bet for you guys. I've seen your Patreon numbers.
Barely.
You guys,
some of it's public. Yep.
So it's an extremely legitimate business, and that should totally be respected. And the fact that it's not, look, if I have to respect you for being a stay-at-home mom, then you have to respect me for having a podcast, right? I know it's not the same thing.
Yeah. Sure. I was very fortunate. Maybe because I had 300,000 hobbies before this one.
This one actually stuck, I guess.
Yeah, but I detailed cars for a while and got really into lifting for a while and played paintball. I always had this outside hobby.
You're like a 1 year hobby.
1 to 2 years, sometimes 6 months, sometimes 2 years. That was usually the range where I stuck with something. And then by 2 years or 6 months, whatever, I got bored. I move on. I didn't like whatever it was anymore. So when we started doing this, it was another hobby. But I told Ricky, hey, as long as we're having fun doing it, as long as it's not toxic to anything, we're good, right? Everything's good. We got really into lifting weights for a while, and it got to a point where we had just had our first kid, Holden, and I was lifting 5 days a week after work, right after work, going into work 9 to 5, and then coming home and lifting right away.
And we weren't quick about it.
She's always she's been the type, and we've had the relationship in which she will sit down, hey, you're not spending enough time with your son. You're not in the house enough. I need help, or I don't need help, whatever it is. But thankfully, that's been an open conversation. With this, she's always been really supportive, and I've been very fortunate with her being very supportive. We had Luna through the channel. She was born in last year, basically, a year and a half ago. So, and we still didn't miss a video. We still shot all the content we needed to shoot. We still did everything we needed to do. and I was still around as much as, as I possibly could be. So I've been very fortunate with her being very independent when I needed her to be helpful with me. You know what I mean? So
sure.
I don't have kids, so it made it really easy.
Sean's got a dog, and I swear to God, he thinks it's a human being. He built literally a guest home for him.
A good dog.
It's insane, dude. Once Sean has children, like I'll never see him again. Like this is all over, dude.
Yeah.
100%. Sean has kids, it's done. I'm just running this by myself. I'm running, I probably got 2 months before everybody leaves realistically.
I think you can just throw the pillow Sean up for a while. That'll pass. People like that.
A long time ago, Sean was gone for a live stream, and I'm like, I'll just run it by myself. So I put a chair behind me, and then I put white garbage bags around a pillow, and I drew a face on it. And he was just in the background the whole time. I called it Pillow Sean. One of the biggest live streams we had at the time. People loved it. People very much enjoyed them.
Yeah, you should do alternate versions of that where you just they become more and more insulting.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Pretty bad.
Just 100%. A broomstick and a bag of shit tied to the head.
Just a brown paper bag on a stick. There you go.
Yeah. So now
we're trying to get to the point. Realistically, we're trying to get to the point where this is a full-time thing, right? Mm-hmm. That's the step. So there's a lot of stuff. And trying to do blends and trying to do more barrel picks and trying to build a new building because we're out of space and trying to do this full time are like the 4 really big things on like the horizon right now. So the channel's done great. There's been a metric shit ton of work put into this channel. And I think something people don't see is like people have reached out and been like, don't tell people you're quitting your job. And it's like, why? And they're like, people don't like that. And I'm like, that's insane. Like if you enjoy the content, you don't want to support the people making it because the content's free for you. It takes a lot of time and a lot of work and a lot of sitting down and thinking is a huge part of let's come up with content that maybe hasn't been made 500,000 times, right? Like let's do something different that maybe not everybody's already done. And how do we do that?
Everyone judges it off the final product that they receive.
Right.
So you're watching a 10-minute video, not knowing it took hours of time to put into it.
Right. And like somebody left a comment on a video and it was like, you guys had one job. And then I commented back and I'm like, figuring out how to use cameras correctly, figuring out lighting, figuring out audio, shooting the idea, coming up with the idea, sourcing the whiskey, editing the final product. Sounds like more than one job to me personally. And the problem is like you said, it being on, everything's based on, hey, that 10-minute video was a great 10 minutes. And it's like, and it hopefully that's our goal.
Yeah.
Is that is a good 10 minutes, right? The problem is there's so much behind it that like so many more hours have been put into this channel, I think, than people who don't make content, maybe is the right way to say it, but people who aren't doing any of it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Probably think, and not everybody, but
Monday morning quarterback, right?
Right.
Like the idea that you have no idea what goes into this. And plus people love to say catchphrases. Right. Which is also a sign of lack of individuality. Like whenever I talk to a fan or that sounds cunty, if there's a comment, like I interviewed somebody, whatever, and then there's a shitty comment. They love to say things like you had one job or that's a saying, like be more original, like be more constructive. Like what are we doing here?
Yeah, tell me I'm shit at this and tell me why.
Yeah,
and then we'll have a conversation.
And then I'll tell you why it's done that way. Or, hey, yeah, we worked on that.
Right.
I love when people comment on old videos that are like a year plus old. And they're like, this sucks. It was like, well, yeah, we know it was
a year ago.
We had a shoestring budget then.
Yeah. Hey, also it was 5 sets ago in a different building, Chief. Like
we've made upgrades.
This doesn't take any research on your end to figure out it's not the same now as it used to be. So shut up or don't comment, dude. Those are your options.
There's that excitement again,
dude, because some people, and it's always like the anonymous troll on YouTube who gives whatever that has like some.
This is my favorite thing that you do.
Because I'm implying that like
he gets a little animated.
Yeah, he gets a little animated. Yeah.
It's usually some person in their parents' basement who has no friends and like has nothing better to do.
Which is what usually people say to us,
right?
Yeah. What do they call incels?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That. Whatever that is, that's them. And it's like, it's always somebody with an anonymous name that's clearly not real. And it's like, I like that you using an anonymous, not real name that's clearly not your name on an account that you're not subscribed to anybody on, and you've never put a piece of content on your account. You want to talk shit here when like we're putting a video out. And that's how it happens to all of us, right? Like podcasters, and all YouTubers, all these people get the same. You are allowed to provide feedback anonymously while you consume their content, which isn't anonymous, right? So I don't know, man. I don't even know why I went on that rant, but now I'm fired up. So.
I'm just happy you did. I just sat back, let it happen.
Yeah. Well, these rabbit holes are like the best. Like, and we're just talking, right? Like, something's going to be said that probably shouldn't be said, and I'll get a text later, like, "Are you sure you want me to leave this in?" And I'm like, "Yeah, who gives a shit?"
This is usually, if people don't know, this is normally how our Tuesday night live streams go. Yeah. Is we have like a scheduled piece of content. We're going to do like a whiskey war or something like that, or a game. We play a lot of games. It's fun. It's just engagement with people watching us to, watch us play a game. But after that, it's rabbit hole city. Like something will come up and we're always like, all right, put a pin in it. And we'll come back to it at the end. And we'll just go down all these rabbit holes of what people have talked about throughout the night, or we said something to each other. And that's the fun. Like that's the most podcasty, I think, segment that we do. Is we just sit down and just talk about
after
random
2 hours,
stuff.
it's a shit show.
Oh yeah, it's a fun shit show. Though.
But it's also like somebody, dude. Speaking of that, somebody commented the other day and was like, "I don't watch this video to hear you two talk about stuff. It's not whiskey related." And I'm like, "Then don't watch the video." Yeah, I can't care. Sean and I made a channel. It's our channel. We could literally stop doing whiskey things on it. Now, would that be a great idea? No,
probably not.
Would it be financially responsible? Definitely not. But we could if we so choose, and that's up to us, right? Like,
but also the channel has always been this way.
Right.
It's two friends hanging out and talking. Right. And I'll be honest with you, one of the questions that you guys have been on my show, I think 3 times. Sean once before, I think.
Yeah, this is my second time. Yep.
Yeah.
I came on without Sean the one time when you had Matt on.
I had meetings.
Right. Actually, no. This is your 3rd time, Sean, because I think you were involved in the conversation with Kenny and them when we talked about.
Yeah, true. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So my point is that, and I forgot it, and here we go. So
or him?
Yeah. So I've done shows where it was like 2 to 3 episodes back to back in one day.
Sure.
And I'm like, I gotta like eat, I gotta drink. You guys do some live streams where it's like 4 hours of you guys sitting there smoking and drinking and talking. And I don't know why I didn't ask this before, but have you either one of you gotten way too fucked in an episode?
Usually not me, because I'll die.
Sean, I have. There's a cot out here, so if that happens, I just break that out and I just sleep here.
Yeah. Sean one time bottle chugged a Stag Junior and killed it. There wasn't a lot left. Probably 2 or 3 ounces. There was
more than there should have been in it.
I think none would have been the appropriate amount.
Yes.
From the in hindsight.
Yeah.
At the time, Sean was like completely fine. Now, this was like one of the times Sean streamed. Sean was at his house and I was here. And Sean turns around for some reason. And I don't remember why you were. I think I did a bottle chug and you did one. Something happened. Yeah. Sean grabs a bottle of Stag Junior. It's got maybe 3 ounces in it. And this is like towards the end of the live. And Sean just kills the bottle of Stag Junior.
Which, for the record, 3 ounces of Stag is the equivalent to like 5.5 ounces of actual 80 proof spirits. Like it's like the legal servings is an ounce of 80 proof, right?
I've never ever put that in perspective in my life.
So he really basically had like 5.5 to 6 shots on camera.
Well, it took approximately about 14 seconds for it to start coursing through my veins. And I flipped a light switch from cohesive, having a conversation, we're having a good night, to what just happened.
Sean slurring every word, going off on like tangents that nobody was like aware of or like in on at all except Sean.
Yep.
And at one point I'm like, all right, we're going to shut it down. And chat was like, Sean went from completely normal Sean to I literally don't know if Sean's eyes were open, Sean. Like
mistakes were made.
But Sean was at his house that night. Yeah. I would say normally in like videos we don't, because sometimes we batch videos and we'll shoot like, I think the most videos we ever shoot at once is during Advent calendar, which would be like 5 videos back to back, because we do 1 video every day in the month of December up until Christmas, basically.
Oof.
We do maybe the most we've ever done is like 5 at a time.
Yeah.
But they're also like quick blind videos, and there's only an ounce of whiskey between the two of us. So
only drinking a couple ounces throughout that entire time.
Well, if it's a shitter, we're not even drinking the whole ounce.
You get a mouthful.
Yeah. So, but I would say most of the time, the funny thing is what people think based on our energy that
we're drunk all the time.
Yeah. That we're constantly intoxicated. And sometimes, and some people think because of our energy, we're like too drunk and we're tired. And I'm like, that's the only video we shot that day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm tired and sometimes I'm obnoxious. And those are my options, right? Like sometimes it's too much. And sometimes it's like, I feel like I don't want to be there because I'm tired or whatever, but
Constantly with you. You slept too much today.
I slept too much.
Yeah.
I got a solid 8 and now I feel like shit. So
I want to say like 4 years ago is when 1792 Foolproof came out, somewhere around there. And at the time, the Facebook bourbon world was big on bottle chugs.
Sure.
Like nothing was more baller than doing a bottle chug of a hard to get special bottle.
We're trying to keep that alive. People hate it now. So,
So I thought I had this genius plan that I had come up with while I had already been drinking for this group. Everybody was doing them. They were basically nominating other people to do them. I thought that I would chug the rest of this bottle of 1792, which was probably like 60 to 70% full. And then what I would do is I would cheat the system and just go to sleep. Like if I go to bed right now, then I'll be drunk in my sleep and not drunk and awake.
People aren't watching this. Me and Dan are intensely looking at each other with our eyes wide open.
Just terror. Pure terror. This is nightmare fuel.
Yeah, well, there was a video of it that still is the video. I took the video down, but someone had screen recorded the whole thing. Yeah, so if anyone's watching, they want to send that to Dan and Sean. But it did not. The plan did not work.
I just envision you crawling around on all fours. Just very mad. Just help me.
That's terrifying.
I thought, it was a stupid move, and it was the only stupid move that I can think of other than just drinking and doing shows back to back. Sure. But so I went to bed within 30 minutes. It had just destroyed my stomach. It was just so much alcohol all at once. That I spent the rest of the evening on the floor, and my wife had no sympathy. She was like, "You did this.
Yeah,
you did this," and she just shut the door, left a glass of water, shut the door, and I worked through it. But it was I'm not that person. I'm not like. Nowadays, with everything that's going on,
right,
with the channel and everything, like I drink enough already. I don't need to do shots. I'm anti. I don't do shots. I don't. It's just not my thing. And in retrospect, it was probably one of the dumbest things I ever did.
That's a lot, though.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
We drink out of the bottle often,
and it upsets a lot of people.
You know what, dude? Here's the thing. It's a love-hate thing. There's not a single person in the world that goes, I don't care at all. Everybody's like, do it, or everybody's like, you guys are fucking idiots. Those are our two responses. And you know what? The great part about Sean and I making a channel is we get to do it if we want. So we got so many comments on people saying things like, you guys need to stop drinking out of the bottle. Like that's something that a lot of people like feedback wise. And then it's like, if you buy it for us and you ask us not to drink out of it, then respectfully, we won't. Until you like, we're drinking out of bottles we aren't sharing with people that are ours personally. Why does it bother you at all that we're doing that with our own? You know what I mean? Such a weird take to me that somebody else's whiskey, you're like, I don't like how you're doing that. You put Sag Junior in a cold fashion. How dare you? Like, but I bought the Sag Junior. You know what I mean? Like,
and the cherries.
Dude, whiskey might be one of the more entitled.
Oh, cynical, entitled, judgmental.
Yeah.
I got into a argument the other day. But every hobby has this, though. I mean,
that's true.
100%.
Basically, someone made the comment that why do we not store whiskey on its side where we store wine on its side?
Right.
And obviously, you already know the answer to this. It's because the alcohol eats the cork. But I just made a lighthearted comment that was totally meant like lightheartedly, but I made it at 10 o'clock at night. You don't try to make...
Dude, okay, hold on.
You try not to have conversations, especially about how you should do things within the bourbon hobby at 10 o'clock at night.
I see you on your Facebook group. I see you on our Facebook group. Your lighthearted comments get people fired up constantly.
Like, he posts them at like 10:59. He's like,
it's so
neck pours, and then goes to sleep. And
Chris
then he just wakes up.
Chris in Houston Bourbon side goes, hey, guess what? Jack Daniels, bourbon, and then walks away.
Yeah,
it's amazing. I laugh every time.
I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. I feel like I'm very reasonable. Every time I drink high-proof alcohol, it makes my nose run. So there was one night where I thought I made Matt upset, and I sent him. I sent him a PM because in his group, I made some joke because there was a moment in time where you guys were doing a blind challenge bracket thing with Greasy Grease, and you're all taking shots at each other. Yep. And so I took some shots, even though I'm not even participating in it. I was just trying to, I'm just trying to have fun. And I made some joke at Matt's expense, and his comment was, "Every day since I approved your membership, I've regretted it fully." And I was I sent him a PM. I was like, "Hey man, I was just kidding. Are you okay?" And he's like, "Dude, I'm totally fine." I was like, "I don't know. That felt mean. I felt it in my heart." But
that hit different.
But I mean, yeah. Oh, so the wine thing. So I just made the comment that, as far as I can tell, I don't think that wine needs to be stored on its side. And all of the wine cunts, I'm sorry, it's the radio. Let me say something else. All of the wine cunts basically were just like tearing me apart because traditionally wine is stored on its side. Yeah. And I just was like, listen, I'm open to this, but I'd like to see some actual evidence as opposed to tradition. Because like we've all seen within the bourbon hobby, there's all kinds of things that we always thought was supposed to be true that we repeated. Bourbon can only be made in Kentucky. We should wet your corks every so often, and whatever.
All that
neck
stuff.
Pours, all of it.
Right.
So there's a whole string of very strong-willed beliefs that we repeat based off what we learn from YouTube channels and other people.
Right.
And I just said, hey man, like there was an article that was produced, and I didn't even cite the article, but there was an article that produced, and I've talked to a few winemakers about it, that basically said the humidity in the bottle of wine is 100%, so the cork's not going to dry out. Right. And so, and I know from the industry side, a lot of wine is shipped in boxes upright and will sit it in transit and in warehouses upright for months and sometimes longer, years. Sure. So, and what about synthetic corks or screw tops? Right. No, we just blanketly store wine on its side because that's what we've been told. I was trying to be somewhat like, hey man, let's expand our horizon and have a civil conversation at 10 o'clock at night with a bunch of jerks. So it just devolved, but yeah.
But you're also talking like, it's such a weirdly whiskey, same, but wine and whiskey, such a passionate group of people, right? It's not a lot. I mean, there are a lot of people who consume alcohol.
Oh, see, you're going to go into it. I was going to go short and sweet. Snobbery is very hard to overcome.
Yeah, well, but there's so many people who drink alcohol, but the people who get that involved can often form strong opinions, right? Yeah. I think the problem comes more. Snobbery is definitely a word for it, but I think the problem comes when it's like such a closed-minded thing. When it's let's ignore everything that's ever been done by anyone ever because that doesn't. That doesn't solidify what I already believe. Yeah. And listen, Chris doesn't believe neck pours are real, right?
He likes to be wrong.
And science, run by you and I specifically, a chemist, says it is, right? So, and Chris, no matter what we do with our actual chemist here, will not prove us correct to Chris. No, but like in reality, the difference is though, you and I can give each other shit about it because we don't. It at the end of the day, it's like, hey man, we're drinking good whiskey and we're hanging out and we're
also friends. Like we're not like
we're understanding within each other. We can have different beliefs. It's not changing what we're doing in any way, shape, or form. I'm still going to drink this and enjoy it, whether I believe it is or is not affecting the whiskey because of a neck pour. Right. And you're going to do the same.
I'm going to dump out the first 3 ounces of every bottle that I buy. Period.
Well, this is not. This is these polarizing debates. It doesn't. Whether you're on one side or the other, it doesn't mean that either one of you are a bad person. This isn't a pro-choice or pro-life debate or a Democrat or Republican debate. Like, there's no fundamental, like, whether or not you believe in the neck pour doesn't mean you're racist, right? Like, it's not like it's not a deal breaker.
Except for Dan.
Yeah, here we go. This is Chris. This is his next platform that he gets on. He goes, if you believe.
This is my next.
You're part of the cult, 100%.
100%.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things that it's like we give each other our time. You filmed a little video and posted it in the group where you were like, I think you dumped out the first 2 ounces and be like, it's for you, Chris. And like that's funny. Like it's not a big deal. Right. And Brent Elliott's also a chemist and he disagrees with you, but it doesn't matter. Like it's not important. It's not important.
He neither confirmed nor denied it. I read the article.
Is that what? Yeah. What article?
The article. Don't quote it. Not important. The one. This is how arguments work. You just say there was one, it existed. I don't know what it was called.
Was it Vine Pair?
Did he quote or did he ask Brent Elliott?
I think so.
So I interviewed Brent Elliott and we had this discussion.
Sure.
There were quotes in there from.
I can text him.
Yeah. I got.
really.
Oh yeah. Are we? Speaking of name dropping. All right. Santino, you want to text Brent Elliott?
My bad.
I might be wrong. I thought he was the one that was quoted in the article that basically said that it's basically, a generational thing that's passed down, that the neck pour is oxidation. And it's like, that's just what people use as a buzzword. It's like,
sure,
people don't actually understand what's going on there, that whether it changes or not, it's very hard to prove. And no one has like concretely said that, no, it doesn't change or that it does change. So whether it's kind of up to you, whether you believe it or not.
That's
so it's like, all right.
Sure.
What
Yeah. So I wasn't referring. I don't remember that part of the article. I was just, I had this conversation with him prior because I had called his assistant master distiller to, there was some speculation over whether or not Four Roses could ever actually reach hazmat.
Oh, okay.
And what the highest proof Four Roses ever released.
Yeah.
And the answer, which was I found fascinating, because they're single floor rick houses, it's never going to happen. And the most they've ever seen is 134, 135. And if I remember correctly, I don't believe anything close to 135 has actually been bottled, like as a single barrel.
That's actually really interesting.
It just doesn't get warm enough in the rick house for it.
They don't have enough floor. That's so crazy.
Huh.
Yeah. So all of your hazmat products are usually top floor aged.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Jack Daniel's single barrels are all from the top two floors, floor 6 and floor 7 of their warehouses. And there's been a few 140 plus proof single barrels, and they're releasing that thing that High Plains.
That's the new label that they're putting out, is the Jack Daniel's hazmat.
Yeah. So there's been plenty of it, but it's and all the stags are all top floor aged. What is that?
Jeez, oh Pete, that
had some pressure
unintentionally, damn near a bullet shot out of this bottle of whiskey. I pulled the cork out and it popped like kadoosh. You know what I mean? Like, holy shit!
I was nervous for you.
So I didn't hear it at all. It muted. It what do you call it?
Clipped.
Dude, it was so loud.
I didn't mean to draw attention to that. That just happened that way. So
no, it's okay. So the whole thing's been a fascinating discussion. I've talked to a few people about it, and that's what's so great about any subject is it's really hard to find a consensus on anything. I interviewed this guy, Edward Slingerland, a couple weeks ago about his book Drunk, and there is debate within the anthropology world over whether or not beer and alcohol predates agriculture. So there's a beer before bread theory, meaning, and for those who listen, they're probably like, yeah, I get it, cool. So hunter-gatherers would gather up fruits and grains and stuff, and then they would all share it. But they didn't have refrigeration, so it would get rained on and ferment, and they would get drunk off of it before it would become too rotted that it'd make them sick.
Hell yeah.
So there's strong evidence that we would basically, the idea of agriculture and purposely growing grains was to make alcohol on purpose.
Sure.
So, and of course, all the grains that we were growing, we made bread with it, we made other food with it, but those are the same grains we used to make booze with. And Göbekli Tepe, that old, that 12,000-year-old site in Hungary, Göbekli Tepe had these vats of that held alcohol, and we know Göbekli Tepe predated agriculture. Oh. So there's not even a consensus within anthropology of whether or not beer before bread was a thing.
Right.
Some people think agriculture came first, then alcohol. Others believe that beer became first, then agriculture. So it's all of these people are experts in their field. They are scientists. They've looked at the evidence, and there's still not a consensus. Right. So I've talked to chemists. Some believe it, some don't. Right. It's so interesting. It's so great, dude. I'm telling you, read that book. There's an audiobook version. It's called Drunk, and it's how we sipped, danced, and stumbled our way into civilization. It's a fantastic book. Rogan interviewed him first.
Yep.
And so I reached out to his people. I was like, dude, I want to come talk to you.
You also got to think about how, dude, so much alcohol is consumed in the Midwest. And this proves my point literally perfectly.
What else we got?
How much alcohol consumption jumped during pandemic?
Oh, well, I mean, people are home.
Right. This is my point, though. When people are bored, alcohol consumption goes up.
Yeah,
right.
Pass some time.
Well, back in what I'm going to call the olden days, so AKA history,
they were very bored.
There's no internet. There's literally there's no Tinder. There's no Grinder. There's nothing, dude. And so what people were doing is they were consuming all the alcohol. Yeah, you got to throw Grinder in there. You know what I mean?
Dan's wheelhouse.
But the thing is
shout out to Matt. Yep.
You have to think back then when there's a lot less to do and you can't even drive a car because they don't exist.
Okay.
Why not drink all day? Microdosing alcohol. This is a new thing.
Yeah. I mean, you can't drink all day unless you start in the morning. Listen, I can't thank you guys enough for doing the show. It's always great to catch up with you. It'd be good to catch up with you soon outside of just doing a show or you know, what do you call it? Content. Yeah. So I am talking to a distributor in Michigan.
Hell yeah.
So
we got a big one.
Hell yeah.
I've got a reason to come up there.
Sounds good.
I'd love to have a cigar. I'd love to catch up.
And for sure.
And talk more shit about Matt. So
if you come to Michigan and you don't see us, then we have a humongous problem.
We're fighting.
Yeah. Well, listen, I can't thank you guys enough. I appreciate it. And
thank you.
Cheers,
for having
guys.
us on. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Cheers, buddy.
Balcones' first ever year-round bourbon was an inspiration. It all had to work together. A blend of carefully selected ingredients, Texas-sized pot stills, and creative people determined to find the absolute best way to usher a new whiskey along. When you discover how it pairs with a meaningful moment, suddenly the feeling of drinking great whiskey becomes a whole lot more.